Hello and welcome to Kessel Fun, the official podcast of the Star Wars Speculation subreddit. I'm Sam, and I'll be hosting this episode today.
I'm Vinny, and my face is based on a Ralph McQuarrie design.
I'm Todd.
I'm Lai, and I am Anakin Skywalker's post-episode 3 wife. Hello.
Brilliant. So, we have some big news from a galaxy far, far away. Firstly, we're going to get into the new rumor that's come out, or maybe not so new rumor by the time this podcast comes out. But the Mandalore series, possibly, this is just a rumor. It comes from a credible source. So, Vinny, would you like to take that away, please?
Yeah, fresh off the rumor mill from 2 months ago is we've got Jason Ward from Making Star Wars claiming that the much anticipated Jon Favreau live-action Star Wars series is going to be about Mandalore and the Mandalorians. I am particularly excited about this. I mean, they had so much lore in the old canon, a whole bunch of world built around them, mostly by Karen Traviss, and we got a little bit of them from Clone Wars that didn't quite vibe with what they used to look like in the old canon, more of a kind of diet Coruscant. But we got more of them in Rebels and with Sabine and Ren Clan and Death Watch. And I'm really looking forward to seeing more of them now. Again, if this rumor fleshes out to be true, but Ward has a pretty strong track record. I mean, there's a lot of loose ends that were left open by Filoni's series, Rebels and Clone Wars. For instance, the Darksaber, which, is the King Arthur's sword of the new canon Mandalorians. Whoever holds it is the ruler. We could be seeing the first live-action appearance of the Darksaber, so getting to see a live-action prototype lightsaber would be pretty badass. There's a lot of strong characters that could come out of that show that would carry over, like Bo-Katan, the redheaded woman who Sabine Wren gave control of the Mandalorians over to at the end of her arc in Rebels. But it could also tie into some of the content that we have coming up soon, which is Season 7 of Clone Wars, Get Hype, Poppers, Streamers, where they're going to be taking back Mandalore and the Siege of Mandalore, which would involve, obviously, Ahsoka. So they may be able to name drop Ahsoka, maybe even have like a wall carving or a stone carving. Ah, yes, here are the tales of the Siege of Mandalore, where a valiant Jedi helped us return our land. And hey, we get to shout out to Ahsoka. And in that reference, things they could pull back from the new canon history. They could even mention Maul, who ruled Mandalore alongside Death Watch for some time. So you get to name drop Maul, who has been revived in the canon through Solo and many other forms, but in the casual viewer's mind, Solo. As for stuff that we might be seeing from the old canon that they could bring in, Mandalore has a huge, huge history. They were part of all of the Jedi versus Sith wars in the Old Republic. They always seem to get dragged into it via, whoever was in charge, Exar Kun, Ulic Eldroma, all those old Republic Jedi, and they were all over the place in the KOTOR games. And the other thing is, everyone's been screaming, where is Boba Fett? Where is Boba Fett? Where is Boba Fett? And the closest we've come to knowing what's happened to him is in Aftermath. There is a mention of some random character who makes himself the sheriff of a town in Tatooine, has Boba Fett's armor, but is not Boba Fett himself. In the old canon, Boba Fett, old grandpa Boba Fett, and his hot bounty hunting granddaughter go back to Mandalore, and he takes the title of Mandalore and becomes ruler, hesitantly, of course. And so if there is going to be an excuse to bring back Boba Fett, it's going to be now. And another thing I'm kind of interested in is, in the old canon, there was a language of the Mandalorians called Mando'a. It kind of became the fandom's version of Klingon. All the hyper nerds learned it. And I was really surprised to not see it used at all in Rebels. It was kind of disappointing. Just a few battle cries, at least. But we've seen nothing of it so far in the new canon, and I think this would be a cool excuse to bring it back. Lai, you were looking at it, and you were talking about the Journeyman Protectors?
Oh, yeah. So I've, just to do a little homework for this episode, I watched the Mandalorian episodes, and when Kanan and Sabine go to Conquer Dawn to recruit Fen Rao. When they go recruit Fen Rao, I thought it was cool that Kanan mentioned that he saved his life pretty much saved him in his teacher's life. So if we can see Fen Rao is alive by the end of Rebels, right? I know he helped with destroying the arc pulse generator. But yeah, so that, and I would love to see, of course, more the House of Vizsla, um, Bo-Katan, and the Night Owls. And I do believe Sabine did speak a little Mandoa when she was trying to land on Crow's Nest. Is that what it's called? Crow's Nest, where her mother was. But yeah, I don't think there is much Mandoa in that. It would be cool to see Tristan, Sabine's brother. And one thing I am interested that could possibly even affect the sequel trilogy was the arc pulse generator that Sabine invented, or in the Imperial Academy, how she switched it to destroy the stormtroopers' armor. I know she deleted all the data from the Empire, but if somebody could, you know, reinvent that, that would be a pretty powerful weapon against the First Order or whoever they wanted to destroy. So I would love to see that, and I'm excited to see if all the syndicates and the different houses of Mandalore and the clans.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I cannot think of a better TV series for them to do at this time period. Because when I first heard that Favreau was making the show when it was only going to be set 3 years after the Battle of Endor, I was thinking, what can they do? What can they really do that's going to be impactful, that's going to have a big story surrounding it, but not have the Empire involved? And not, obviously, we still want the era of peace throughout the galaxy, because otherwise the original trilogy characters really aren't going to have accomplished anything if 2 years later, 3 years later, there's war and chaos tearing through the galaxy. So I was thinking, what could we get? And then when I heard this rumor, all of it just clicked. I've never been a massive lover of Mandalorians. I do like them. I enjoy the stories. So it's not like I'm a fanboy for Mandalore or anything like that. But when I heard about this TV series, it just clicked for me, because they really do have the potential to make it its own self-contained thing while also feeling massive, because based on what the scope of the TV show, it's going to be about Mandalore and maybe about, claiming Mandalore, claiming the throne of Mandalore. Because the way I see it now, this is going to be about 2 years after the Battle of Jakku. So that means that the Empire has only just lost control of Mandalore, because if you remember from Rebels, they did actually control the Mandalore territories. So it itself would have created like a power vacuum. So I could see all the clans kind of clamoring to rule Mandalore, and maybe we will see Bo-Katan with the Darksaber, because she was in possession of that by the end of the Rebels arc. I just think that it will be perfect as a show if this rumor does end up being true. Another thing that does add some credibility to it is Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau were both at the Skywalker Ranch together. They took a picture and put it on Twitter. So to me, it could be a bit of a teaser. It might not mean much, because they are both the showrunners of the new TV show, so it could have just been more about that. But I don't know. We have had a lot to do with Mandalore throughout the post-Disney takeover. We've had Rebels. We've had the Siege of Mandalore that's coming back from the Clone Wars. We're finally getting the ending. Obviously, that was planned before the Disney takeover, but we're getting that. We've got Crimson Dawn in Solo, which has a loose tie-in, a vague tie-in with the Mandalorians, obviously with Maul controlling Mandalore at one point. And hopefully, the speculation is that the new book by Claudia Gray, Master and Apprentice, will also take place on Mandalore, although that is speculation, I will admit. But it would make a lot of sense if that's where that book did take place. Not to mention, we've had, even post-Disney, we've had a lot of lore about the Mandalorians. We've had, I do forget his name now, but it was the first Mandalorian Jedi actually did create the Darksaber, and there was a whole kind of legend about him. So I think what's really cool about Mandalore as well is the fact that it's not all one planet. Unlike what the Clone Wars showed us, we now know it's like a territory. So there are multiple planets with like multiple clans and multiple houses. So using the Jungle Book technology where it can create environments from scratch and basically make them look like real life sets, I think this would be a perfect way to do this. I mean, budget wise, we're looking at, on average about 10 million per episode. If it's going to be 10 episodes, I think it's 100 million for the entire series. So just guessing it's going to be 10 episodes long, like something like Game of Thrones, that's 10 million per episode. So, we could be seeing multiple planets, and we could see something like truly interesting, not held back by real world, workings of real life. So, yeah, but I'm thinking if this was a Mandalore show, a show set up about the Mandalorians, I'm thinking it could be like a Game of Thrones type show where it could focus on like multiple clans. We've seen in Rebels that there are clans and then there are houses. Or, well, the houses fit into clans, so there'll be multiple houses serving a clan. And I'm thinking that what could be really cool to see is have a family that is a house, and they're like small time, they're nobodies basically. And then maybe over the course of the seasons, we could see them slowly gain power and influence, maybe even becoming the rulers of their clan, and then fighting to rule Mandalore. I think that could be really interesting to see. I'm super hyped for maybe something like that. Another factor that I think could be part of the show, although hopefully not a massive one. I don't want a massive New Republic presence, but I'm thinking that if the Empire's gone, right? The rule of Mandalore's gone, and if Mandalore has gone into this war zone that it could become if all these clans are battling for power, we could see the newly formed New Republic try and step in and try and like restore peace. And the Mandalorians are like, no, this is our way. This is the way we do things. Stay out of it. And we could maybe see a little bit of the politics in the New Republic, although hopefully not too much. Hopefully they focus mostly on Mandalore. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say on the matter. Todd?
Yeah, I'm gonna reiterate a lot of what you guys said, which is that when I first heard that the rumor about this being on Mandalore, that piqued my interest because I do think that show in Mandalore in this time period has a lot of potential from what we've seen in Rebels, more so than what we've seen in Clone Wars. Mandalore has always had a lot of history in the legends, and I think that it can definitely be made to make something interesting. Like you said, the clans vying for power. Love to see something like that.
Vinny, when you were talking about Sabine and Ahsoka, you were actually going on about Ahsoka, actually. At the end of Rebels, we see Ahsoka and Sabine head off together.
Mm-hmm.
Ahsoka the White, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Do you think it's a possibility, seeing as we've seen Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni meet in person, do you think we could see these two characters appear in this show?
I think it's certainly possible. I mean, at the end of Rebels, it's made clear that they're going out searching for Ezra, and I would imagine they wouldn't find him first stop. They're going to hit 10 or 12 places looking for him, and one of those places could certainly be Mandalore, especially, and then Ahsoka would be received warmly as, hey, she's the one who saved us, from whatever during the siege. So, yeah, I could absolutely see them tying that with the ending, hinting towards their journey in the epilogue to Rebels. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I know you guys talked about Resistance last episode, so I don't want to go over that again. But one thing I did notice when seeing the trailer, it didn't feel like the direct sequel to Rebels. I don't think this is going to be I don't think we're going to be finding what happened to Ezra, what happened to Sabine, what happened to Ahsoka in this series. I think this is more like a spin-off of Dave Filoni's cinematic universe, or maybe not so cinematic, seeing as it's on TV. But no, I think that having glimpses of that on Favreau's show would work really well. Has anyone else got anything to add?
I don't know if we're going to do that unless Filoni, because we all know that Ahsoka was supposed to be in Thrawn Alliances, right? And that was a hard no from Filoni. Don't know if he's going to let Favreau touch her. Seems to be keeping a hold on her, unless that's what was a part of their discussions.
Well, my understanding was that the only reason that they didn't let him use Ahsoka was because season 4 of Rebels was still in production, and that's what I understand why they wouldn't let her touch her. I think if production had wrapped and they knew what they were doing with Ahsoka from start to finish at that point, then they would have let them use her. But that's again speculation.
Yeah, I also think that I think you're right, Vinny. I don't think it's Dave Filoni has this overprotectiveness of Ahsoka that he doesn't want anyone writing for her, because we see that E.K. Johnson wrote the Ahsoka book, so it's not like Dave Filoni has to write everything Ahsoka and then no one else can touch her. But it's also possible, and this is again entirely speculation, Dave Filoni might be writing a couple episodes here and there, for Mandalore. I don't expect to see, if Ahsoka is going to appear in the show, I don't expect her to be a full-time character, like a full cast member. But maybe we could see her in the odd cameo appearance or odd episode, and maybe Dave Filoni might want to write those episodes. I don't know. Maybe that's why they met up to talk at Skywalker Ranch. Just a theory, just a bit of speculation.
I think it's definitely plausible to at least see Sabine, since we don't have like a natural ending for her yet. And, I don't know how they're going to close off the Ahsoka Sabine thing when they find Ezra and Thrawn. So I think it would be really cool to see Sabine as a live action character. And I very much agree with the Game of Thrones thing and how rich the history of Mandalore is. It's very much plausible to have this power struggle outside of the war, outside of the galactic war. So that's what I like. It's very believable. And I really do hope it's on Mandalore, because the Mandalorians, them as warrior people, we don't have, I don't know if there's many planets or cultures in Star Wars that have as strong as presence as the Mandalores. And they definitely stick out as a group of people. You know what I mean? Vinny?
Yeah, and touching on the Game of Thrones thing, and actually Resistance as well, we're seeing a fairly strong negative reaction from several corners of the fandom to the Resistance trailer. One of the more common complaints being that it's too kiddie, which, yes, you could say, hey, Rebels started out kiddie and Clone Wars certainly started aimed at younger audiences, but there is definitely a negative reaction to how blatantly it's aimed at possibly even a younger audience than those two series were. And this could be their response to that. Mandalore it's a violent culture, it's a warrior culture, it's it's beheadings and rise of power through executions and usurping titles. And so that level of violence, that rated R-ness of the Mandalorian culture would play well into a show if they intended it to be aimed at older audiences to counter or provide at least equal material and equal entertainment to balance out the younger audience aimed Resistance, so that there's a little bit of something for everyone. The Mandalorian culture would play well into that. Sam, you had something there?
I completely agree with what you're saying. I think one thing we have to remember is that this is going on Disney's streaming service, and one thing that streaming services don't have to cater to is age groups. They can be a lot more flexible on how they handle their material. So yeah, I think that you might be right with Resistance being more for the younger kids, which is fine. It's cool to have a show for younger kids, for Star Wars, to get them into Star Wars. That's completely fine in my book. But, for us older fans, we also want to see some Star Wars TV material, and I think that's probably why we started watching these shows targeted for younger audiences to begin with. So yeah, I think that it's gonna be a win for everyone at the end of the day. Yeah,
I think that pretty much covers it, unless someone else had one more thought they wanted to throw into the mix on the possibility of a Mandalore show. Well, next up, I think you were talking about, we have some new hints and actual real material from episode 9.
Yep, we got some leaked photos here. The three sources are Prensa Imperial, The Sun, and Making Star Wars. So, and these were shared by White Plum and Diminished Comet on our SWS Discord server, if you guys want to go check that out. It's in the episode IX Leak Discussions channel. So we're going to go probably through the numbers. The first photo is of Finn and Poe. So, Sam, what do you think about that photo?
Yeah, I mean, this is cool. We get to see the new outfits of Finn and Poe. They look very, very different from what we've seen in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, because really, The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi outfits, apart from Rey and Kylo Ren to some extent, the costumes have been very similar, obviously, because it took place in such a short space of time. So it's really cool to see vastly different outfits and a vastly different costume style. I'm noticing Finn seems to be supporting those Han Solo type leggings there, from what I can see. These flight pants. I don't know if that means anything. I think that Finn was kind of or Han Solo was kind of the mentor to Finn in The Force Awakens. That's how I kind of took it. So maybe we're going to see Finn even more as a Han Solo kind of role. I don't want to say selfish guy, because Finn wasn't selfish, but he was kind of like looking after his own rather than fighting for a bigger cause. And now we're going to see him possibly take a much larger role in the Resistance, just like Han Solo did in Return of the Jedi. So that's a possibility.
Todd, do you have anything to say about the second photo?
The second photo is pretty similar to the first. We have again Finn in his new Han Solo outfit and Poe in his. Looks like Poe's holding a thing. These aren't really high definition photos here, but it looks like a pair of macro binoculars or something similar. And like Sam said, with definitely seeing some Han Solo vibes on Finn, and we know that he's, like a spoiler for the next couple photos, but he is in the Falcon, which I believe was one of the first official photos for Episode 9, right? So yeah, he might be taking on a similar role to Han, at least visually and thematically with the Falcon.
Vinny, do you have anything to say about picture number 3?
A couple things I'm taking from pictures 1, 2, and 3 here is that Poe, you can see he's got a wrapping on his arm of some kind, looks on his left arm, that clearly to me, unless it's a fabulous space fashion accessory, looks to me like a battle wrapping or maybe even a bandage, so possibly he's been wounded at that point in the film. Another thing I'm getting out of this pictures is Finn clearly has longer hair. He's sporting kind of a crop top. It's a bit longer, which implies to me that we are actually going to get that time skip, because, Episode 8 happening immediately after, 5 minutes after Episode 7 ended, and now we're going to get some time to breathe for the factions to cool off, possibly. But his longer hair alone screams to me, hey, time skip. The other thing I'm getting from this is, between seeing them in the Falcon and seeing them on this unnamed planet, it's clear that Rose is not with them. And I find that interesting because, they were setting up a Rose-Finn dichotomy at the end of, really throughout Episode 8. They were not subtle about it at all. And now they're off on their adventure, and Rose isn't with them. So are they aborting on that idea? I'm not sure. Sam, what were you thinking?
Well, I mean, as far as Rose goes, I think that it's hard to judge it from just one scene. However, I am happy to see Finn and Poe back together. The bromance lives on, hopefully. So I don't know. But yeah, I mean, Rose could be anywhere. She might actually be on this planet for all we know. She might be helping some other stuff out. But I think that they probably will still be going with the Finn and Rose thing. But that's just speculation on my part. But I think that if they set up for The Last Jedi, it only makes sense that they would carry that on.
So, photos 4 through 6, what are your guys' impressions?
Well, in this next set of photos, we see that we do have Chewbacca also here. It's always nice to see him hanging around. We have these people riding on what looks like horses with some green screen attachments. Not sure how those will turn out. We do have some animals on this planet. We also have, looks like a black actress. I believe, Sam, you knew who that was?
Yeah, I believe that might be Naomi Aki. I don't want because I don't know what Naomi Aki actually looks like, but I know she is a black British actress, so that could be her. And there was, interestingly enough, this harkens back to a previous podcast, some news on a previous podcast we did about a casting call for a character called Caro. So according to this, the casting call was described as an ethnic female within the age range of 18 to 26 years of age. So I believe Naomi Aki was 26, right? We did look that up. There is a preference for an African American actress, so she's black, so obviously not American, but I don't think it really matters once they get into Star Wars, what country they're from. So it says that Caro has a captivating naturalness and is a leader and a problem solver. She also sports a sense of humor and has a strong will. So yeah, I personally really do believe this is Caro, or who maybe it's a placeholder name, I don't know. But there is also, from the person that actually leaked this on Reddit, they say that Poe and Finn are reuniting with Chewbacca for the first time in months. Chewbacca has been working with this cell of rebels who are led by Naomi Aki's character. I've been told that this is part of a larger series of events that sees Poe and Finn unite the smaller cells across the galaxy to fight the First Order. And then they say, please don't ask me about the horses. I have no clue what they will look like in post. So we still don't know anything about the horses. But yeah, no, this makes sense to me. Even if this extra info about the story is all, BS. It makes sense to me that the Resistance would be trying to build up their army to fight the First Order, because the First Order now are reigning supreme across the galaxy, I think. So, yeah, that would add up to me. It also does appear that Chewie is actually with this group and Poe and Finn are walking up to them, so that also lends credence to that. Vinny?
I'm looking at their clothing, and I'm thinking about what rebel cells might have been out there for them to reach out to, for them to work with. And one of the most well-received aspects of Solo was Enfys Nest, who was leader of one of the earliest, what would become the rebel cells. And looking at their clothing, which you can see between the camo coats they're using to hide from the paparazzi, it's armor-plated, but not quite, almost like leather-wrapped, leather-plated. And their outfits... Maybe it's just me, but I almost want to say maybe this might not be her home planet of Savareen from the end of Solo, but this could be Enfys Nest's or the descendants of the continuance of Enfys Nest gang, because Disney would want to build on the more positive aspects. You want to do callbacks. I mean, Enfys's story clearly isn't done, and this screams to me that it could be Enfys's crew. And they'd want to play on to that, since it was, one of the more popular aspects we saw from Solo. Todd, what were you thinking on that?
Yeah, I definitely think that it's possible that this is a continuation of Enfys Cell, the Cloud Riders, were they called? Because as we've seen with Saw Gerrera and his partisans, they continued on even after his death. So like that group, that rebel cell existed. So we could definitely see something similar happen with them.
I don't know if you guys notice, there's a man on one of the horses, and I don't know if that's Poe. Do you guys think that's Poe?
On which picture, sorry?
Picture number 4 with the horses.
I don't know, yeah, because Poe is in the bottom right corner there.
Oh, sorry, I didn't scroll down on the photo. Oh, yeah, so...
Unless Poe has a clone.
Oh, no.
Clone Poe confirmed. Breaking now.
So... I think we might get another new character aside from this clan or tribe. Don't know who that is exactly, but I think that's interesting that there's another male lead that is possibly, or not lead, but another male on the resistance side. So I like that. And I also like this planet. I like the plains and the hills. We don't get a lot of green in the ST, so just like Ray said,
Never seen this much green in the whole galaxy.
This much green in the whole galaxy. I mean, it's not exactly green; it's a little yellow.
It's like browny green.
But I do like that this is like a sort of a new planet, and hopefully this is where Naomi is. That'd be great, and I'm super excited to see who they conjure up as allies here. So. Sam, did you have your hand up, or did Manny?
Yeah, can I just address the elephant in the room here that I think we're all thinking, this looks boring. this scenery, yeah, it really does. Again, that doesn't mean anything. It could look entirely different in the movie. This could just be like the outskirts of something far more exciting. But the grass isn't really doing it for me. I'll be honest with you. I don't know. What do you guys think? Are you guys in agreement with me, or do you think I'm talking rubbish?
I think you're talking shit, Sam. I think it's a perfectly fine planet.
Well,
I think
fair enough.
I think
fair
we've
enough.
got. What else have we gotten so far in Star Wars? We got a water planet, we got a forest planet, we got a desert planet.
I like the wacky planets. We got like Felucia covered in giant building-sized flowers and Raxus Prime and stuff. Yeah, trash-covered planets.
For a sequel trilogy planet, I think it's fine.
This is what I'm kind of worried about with JJ coming back for episode 9, as much as there are many things that I'm excited for JJ coming back for. The planets we got in The Force Awakens, I wasn't too wild about. They were quite boring to me. They were pretty much just... And I know the reason why is he's harkening back to the original trilogy, but I feel like the original trilogy maybe did it because of constraints it had at the time of filmmaking. I feel like the sequel trilogy could be doing more, much similar to what they did with Canto Bight, which is a controversial planet, but, it certainly had a look to it. It certainly had a style to it. And even Crate, Crate looked vastly, vastly different to anything we've seen on Earth. Whereas I feel like it seems to be based on what we've seen so far with JJ and The Force Awakens. It was basically just anything you might see on Earth and then add a few Star Wars bits to it. Jakku was obviously very cool. I really like Jakku, but aside from that, it was a bit boring to me. Vinny, do you agree or disagree?
Well, here's the thing is that visually, just visually, not thematically, not speculating, but just visually, the closest thing that we have in Star Wars, or at least the current canon, that looks like this is Lothal. Because Lothal is covered in those tall fields, about 2 to 3 feet high, which means, Sam, are you calling Lothal boring?
Yeah, Lothal's so cool. What are you talking about?
Yeah, you're damn right I'm calling Lothal boring.
Oh, all right, throwing down.
Lothal was Ralph McQuarrie's art here. Are you calling that boring, Sam?
Oh, no, you better not be talking crap about Ralph McQuarrie. Get out.
I hope Cham takes you to that cave that he took.
Well, no, look, here's the deal. Lothal has, and this is, again, I'm judging it off this picture, but Lothal has a city, it has weird-shaped houses, it has, weird-shaped, plants.
But it has outskirts, too.
Again, yeah, I'm in complete agreement with that. So I'm saying that...
Where Cham and Ismail have gone to have secret meetings.
Of course, yeah. But what I am saying is there is a bit more to Lothal than just grassy plainlands. And obviously, if there is more to this planet than grassy plainlands, then all for it. But if it is just grassy plainlands, it's a little boring. But hey, I mean, as long as the scene's good, I'm good. So yeah, of leaked information.
So what I noticed about Finn and Poe's outfits is they're a lot more Earth-based. There's not a lot of sci-fi or fantasy to them, and I guess they're more functional than anything. And I think it's pretty interesting because, this is a sci-fi movie, sort of, hinging on fantasy. It reminds me of Indiana Jones in a way. It also reminds me of, adventure movies, with the two guys, two lead males, looking for something. So I don't know. I guess it makes sense calling back to what Sam was saying about how this is JJ's film, and the planets and costuming was a little bit more tempered and not very designed. So I'm not, hating on anything that they're wearing. They look great. And I even love Finn's hair. And as always, Mr. Oscar Isaac is handsome, even from a very low quality photo. But yeah, and I like, what? I will say, I do like Poe's knee-high boots.
I was just going to say that, yeah, the adventure theme vibe is something that Star Wars always had a mix of. That adventure theme in there, Indiana Jones. They're going to go more for that now. That seems, fun, harkening back to Star Wars' roots. I believe. Now, Vinny, you have something to say?
Yeah, I collect the Black Series figures, those nice 6-inch figures, and I was looking at some of them, and it's got, really cool lines and cool yellow stripes and unnecessary padding and cool vests and ribbing on the sleeves that make no sense. And then you look at Poe's figure from The Last Jedi, and it's man in jacket with pants. And it's just like, oh, he just looks like a guy off the streets on Earth. And I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you. While I respect that, it's down to earth and they're the Resistance and they don't have time to buy the latest fashionable chunks of armor to throw on their gauntlets or whatever. I definitely would like to have a little bit of more of that oomph, that 70s retrofuturism, unnecessary pockets and padding to the clothing. Just something to spice it up a little bit.
Exactly. A little more design. You know what I mean? Sam?
I definitely agree with you, Vinny, about it's a little bit less styled, but I mean, to be fair, if you look at Han Solo from Empire Strikes Back, his jacket is just kind of a jacket. He doesn't really, in fact, I would say that Poe's design and Han's Empire Strikes Back design are quite similar. So let's not forget that we have got quite cool costume design with, Rey, especially when she changes into her more Jedi gear that she miraculously got from nowhere.
It's a darker outfit.
Yeah, that looked very new and original to me, and something that I really want to see. I think Kylo's attire looks pretty cool as well. It looked pretty original. He's got kind of the especially in the Force Awakens, he's got the knight attire. That he looks like a knight. Well, he is a knight of Ren, but he looks like a medieval knight. It almost looks like chainmail. And then in The Last Jedi, he almost looks like a prince in a way, like the kind of clothes he's got on. So I don't know.
But we're talking about these leaked photos, and from this, they do look plain, don't they?
Right. So I mean, as far as what we've got to see from episode 9 so far, yes, I will admit the. But again, I think this is a criticism that can be said for the entirety of the ST. I think some clothes look very cool and different, and others look very similar.
As far, yeah, I mean, Holdo and Leia, they got some cool outfits, you know.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
They got designed very nicely, and I loved, Leia's crate jacket with a oversized turtleneck kind of jacket, which was but I believe that was a callback to Blade Runner and Ford Harrison's jacket in that movie. I think that was on purpose, actually, by the costume designer. So, I mean, we've got some cool stuff. I just don't know if their outfits are very Star Wars, if that makes sense. But that's just my opinion. And that, I mean,
I think Finn's leggings definitely are very Star
Oh,
Wars.
yeah, they're very Han.
Finn's look exactly like one of Han's pants. He's still.
Yeah, they're the inverted blue and red stripe.
Like Sam was saying, I don't think in Empire Strikes Back, like, Han's jacket was very simple, and Luke was in, like, a tank top for most of the Dagobah scene. So, like, Star Wars outfits weren't always really that out there in the original trilogy. I honestly think that Poe's looks fine, Finn's look fine. I'm sure they'll be in different things in the movie, or at least not exactly like those. And of course, they'll look better once we see actual photos instead of blurry, small-took photos from inherently being leaks.
Yeah, so aside from all the clothes talk, I do want to talk a little bit about how this could be Lothal, as Vinny said. Maybe a little bit of a possible evidence. I don't think it is Lothal, but the horses that kind of don't look like horses, the bodies almost look like massive wolves.
Oh, yeah, I thought we might be going here. You're thinking they might be the Loth Wolves.
Ooh, okay.
And you know what the Loth Wolves do? They take you to the world between worlds. Is it the window between worlds or
World between worlds?
The world between worlds.
Come on, casual.
Do we want to see the world between worlds in Star Wars Episode 9? I am a firm no.
All right. There is a difference between what we want and what we think the general movie-going audience will be able to accept. And while I, as a Star Wars fan, think the world between worlds is insane and cool and opens up the gate to all sorts of expanded universe characters that I love, I think the general audience is going to be like, whoa, this is not Star Wars. This is magic. I don't understand. This is coming out of nowhere. And they're going to be caught off guard and taken out of it. And I think that's what they're going to be saying in the boardrooms. The executives are being like, well, we could use this, but man, just like on the first glance, I don't think just the random mother taking her kids to see the new Star Wars movie is going to get any of that and think that it's Star Wars. It's going to be too fantasy.
It's too mystical, right?
I think that if the world between worlds is in Episode 9, which again, I'm not saying it is, I don't think this is Lothal, but I'm just saying if it is, I don't think it will be used in the same way we saw it used in Rebels. I think that it might be maybe to show a character of the past or something to that extent. But yeah, I don't think that it's going to be like saving Han Solo from falling down the pit or something like that. I don't know, but
I think that the way it was used in Rebels, the whole saving Ahsoka, was something that shouldn't happen, like changing the past and everything. It definitely only happened because, Filoni wanted Ahsoka back. Probably because her bird, the Condor, linked to the sister, or linked to the whole world between worlds inherently. Probably has something to do with it, but when I first saw these photos, I immediately thought that those planes reminded me of Lothal. Again, like my immediately go to the world between worlds, but if it is Lothal, I don't think we'll need to go there. Even if we do go there, I think they could pull it off. I don't expect to see it. I'm not going to get my hopes up, but they could. But it definitely won't be as they did in Rebels, changing too much. Definitely showing the past. I feel like Kylo could have a moment seeing the past, his grandfather, to go along with that arc, finish it out. But there's definitely other ways to do it without jumping to this whole huge mystical world time travel thing.
I mean, for sure. I do have to make a correction. I was thinking of Ryloth rather than Lothal. So, fan corrections, I get it if you are in the comments. But so now we're going to go to pictures 8 and 9, which is the Millennium Falcon in the forest. So, Sam?
yeah, I have a strong, maybe a theory would be a bit too of a strong word for it. I think I'll be giving it too much credit, but I have a strong inkling that this could be Batu. I think that one reason only, and it's an out of universe reason, really. Although the plants and shrubbery do look quite similar to what we've seen in the promo picture of Batuu, because obviously, for those of you that don't know, the new Star Wars world is going to be set on a planet called Batuu, which also appeared in Thrawn Alliances, which may or may not have been a bit of a marketing tool to promote that. But yeah, so Galaxy's Edge it's called. Now, the way I see it, I don't want to spoil Thrawn too much, but there was no Imperial presence. It was just a kind of very strange planet in the unknown regions, but there was no Imperial or First Order, well, obviously no First Order presence, but there was no Imperial presence there. There was no fighting going on. There was nothing massively special about what we saw on the planet. So this gets me thinking, if they're going to make a planet that is going to be Galaxy's Edge, Star Wars world, the theme park to go for all things Star Wars, you're gonna have stormtroopers, you're gonna have rebellion/resistance, you're gonna probably have lightsabers. You want to have all that stuff to keep the fans going. So here's what I think: Batuu being the Galaxy's Edge theme park because of Thrawn, or based on what we know of Thrawn, unlikely. Galaxy's Edge being based off the climactic battle of Episode 9, a little bit more likely, in my opinion. I think that it's a strong possibility that we will see Batuu in Episode 9. Of course, it could also kind of be running its own storyline with, that would certainly give it more freedom. But I think that having it the climactic battle of Episode 9 or some sort of presence in Episode 9 would work. But yeah, that's just my opinion on it.
Yeah, I'm looking at it, and it could certainly be Batuu, and you get that classic Disney crossover marketing that I knew they were doing with Thrawn Alliances. And you said it might have been marketing. No, that was marketing. That was absolutely the mouse reaching deep into our nerd pockets. And it's not really that fleshed out in the book. In Thrawn Alliances, you don't hear too much about it. You have one little town, one little cantina, a couple landing spaces for ships. There's one shootout between a local faction that's not really doing anything. It's not really fleshed out. So you don't really have any strong desire to go there yet as a fan, but you're absolutely right. The fact that they're building a whole theme park around it would certainly strongly argue that they wouldn't just use it for a throwaway planet in a single book. There's got to be something more going on there. My one thing is that one of the strongest rumors that we heard about the planets in Episode 9 is that they were going back to either Naboo or Yavin. I keep hearing people going, hey, they're going back to Yavin. And if they are, this certainly looks like the forested areas outside the Massassi temples on Yavin 4. And if that's the case, boy, I hope that's wrong. Because we mentioned before how JJ really likes to throw back to the original trilogy, likes to throw back to that nostalgia. And that's great and all, but, Star Wars is this massive universe. We could go anywhere. And going back to Yavin for would this be the third time now? Would just be, I don't know, man. I would not be happy about it. Going back to generic forest with ruins, war room / hangar that we've seen a billion times before. But I'm sure that there's plenty of fans who are getting angry at me right now going, but I love that. I loved it too, but we could have new things to love. And I think that's even better. Sam, you had thoughts on this?
I think there's no point in going back to planets in Star Wars unless there is like a strong reason for it. Luke going back to Tatooine in Episode 6, a lot to do with like the hero's journey and like the homecoming and all that, and it tied into the story. Obviously, him going to Jabba's palace, and Han was sent to Jabba's palace, so that made a lot of sense. But Yavin, really, Yavin, that planet that was in Episode 4 and then promptly forgotten about, and it looks cool, but there's really nothing much more to it than that. If it's Yavin, of all the planets to bring back in episode 9, Yavin 4 would be far down the bottom of my list. But Todd, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I know we've had the rumors of Episode 9 having Yavin in it ever since they announced that the studio they were filming it in was the set for Rogue One's Yavin was. I really don't want it to show up because, it'd feel like such a JJ thing to do, bringing back, hey, remember Episode 4? You said they've gone back to it in Rebels, they've gone back to it in the comic books, they've gone back to it in Rogue One. So, having it again just because everybody likes A New Hope, let's have A New Hope stuff in it, definitely suck. I feel like from the pictures we have, it just looks like a jungle forest area. It doesn't have to be anywhere we want, anywhere we've gone before. Could just be a new planet, but You know how much Star Wars fans like trying to theorize and figure where things out is.
Well, I mean, we have a sub based around it and a podcast.
Yeah, are you talking about those jerks who just sit there speculating about Star Wars all day?
People who just talk about Star Wars all day.
For like an hour and a half. So that was the leaked photos, and now Sam has an interesting theory about Rey's past. Sam?
Yeah, so I can't take credit for this theory at all. This was a post that I found on the subreddit by a user named Jedi Defender. Full credit goes to them. Go and gild them right now because I really like this theory. He suggests that possibly his theory is that Rey's past is important but not her parentage, which I am in a fair bit of agreement with. I definitely don't think her parentage is important, but I think there might be something more to her past than we're led on to believe right now. And he thinks that it's possible that Rey actually was the cause of her parents' death when they left her on Jakku and were flying away in their spaceship, selling her for drinking money. Maybe she unleashed the power of the dark side and tore the ship down from the sky, and that could be the reason why she's so hesitant and afraid of the Force in The Force Awakens. She's terrified of this lightsaber. She doesn't want anything to do with it, because in the back of her mind she knows that the Force was the very reason for her parents' death. So I've always been a massive fan of that theory. There might be something more. Her parents might have gotten rid of her because they were afraid of her, afraid of her power, which would again tie in with similar parallels to Ben, although it wasn't quite as mean-spirited as selling him off for drinking money. I think that it's possible that Leia and Han sent him off to Luke because they didn't really know how to deal with him, and he felt that they saw him as a monster. So this could be a nice parallel between them two. Jedi Defender also goes on to say that they think that it's possible that Rey and Ben are both suppressing the dark and light side respectively within themselves. So Rey is denying the dark side, and obviously Kylo Ren is denying the light side, and only when they accept that these parts of the Force are natural to them, that they can come together and be balanced and all that good stuff about balance of the Force. So what are your guys' thoughts on this theory?
I'm not sure I should be the first one you throw to on this, because I'm strongly opposed to going back to anything about Rey's past. Maybe a quick callback, but I feel like the time for that would have been in The Last Jedi. And we did get a little bit of it. We got an answer. Hey, your parents were nobodies. And I accept that as the truth. But I feel like it's time for Rey to solidify herself as a character. She's been spending all this time searching the galaxy for who she used to be or who her parents were. And The Last Jedi, I think the final message of Last Jedi was none of that matters. None of that matters at all. And it's time for Rey to define herself and just move forward. And I feel like going back now in the final minutes of the Skywalker saga, taking 10, 20, 30 minutes to go back and even discuss it, would just be slowing down the story. And if there's some big reveal that her parents used to be someone, or if there's some big reveal that she killed her parents, I feel like that would be taking away from her character that she is now, and would slow her character progression down. So I personally, whether or not this theory is true, I don't know. Whether or not she went full Psycho Mantis and killed all her loved ones, I don't know. I don't particularly care. I feel like going back to review it just would slow down her character progression and take away from the ending that needs to be told. Lai, you probably have a much better take on this than I do.
I'm somewhere between you, Vinny, and this theory. So I'm with you about I'm over like trying to find out what happened to Rey's parents, all this stuff. But I will say this is the most interesting theory I've heard ever since TFA was released. I really do like this theory, but as Vinny said, I don't know if cinematically this would fit into the filmmaking, the production, and the overall story. But I do like how this does fill in some plot holes, and some stuff about the characters. So I thought it was a great theory. What I do think is true about this theory is that Rey does need to embrace, the anger that we see during not anger. The more darker sides of herself that we see during her fighting, even when she's like dealing with other people sometimes. that impatience, that the darker side of her. I do think that is true, that she does need to acknowledge that it is there. Sam?
I think embrace is the wrong word for it, but certainly acknowledge, like you said, acknowledge
Right.
that it
Okay.
is
I ended
there.
with the acknowledge. You're right. Acknowledge is a better word.
I'll give you that one. Embrace. We certainly don't want anyone embracing the dark side. That is the wrong way to go. You do not want to embrace the dark side. But you've certainly got to accept that it's there. We are all human. We are all captured by our sins and wrongdoings. That's just what makes us us. And there's no really escaping that. So it seems that Rey might even be a little bit afraid of the dark side. If that was the case, if it did cause her to kill her parents. So on what you said, Vinny, about Rey, you think that she should be moving forward as her own character. I find it hard to argue with that, to be honest with you. I'm not in massive disagreement with you. However, this is definitely, if this was the story that was going to be told, I think that it would have been much, much better to reveal this in episode 8. It seems like an episode 8 thing. I love the idea so much that if they could manage to work it into episode 9, I would really like it. I do also think that while Rey has accepted that she needs to move forward as her own character, I'm not quite sure she's forgiven what actually happened with her parents. I'm not sure if she's forgiven, her parents. I'm not sure if she's possibly even forgiven herself, if there is something she's running from, and this is the case. So maybe we could see something to do with that. But yeah, you're right. They've got to be very, very careful with it, and I think it could very well detract from the overall story if they choose to focus on it too much, if at all. Todd?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Sam, and partly about Vinny. I feel like I really, really like this idea. I like the depth it adds to Rey with her dark side. I feel like if they're going to do something with her past, this is one of the most interesting takes I've seen on it, other than, oh, she's related to somebody, that's her parents, that's her legacy. If she, killed them and she's, has this dark thing she has to, know with and live with, especially since she's always been looking for her parents and feel like she left them, she's responsible for that. I feel like that could be powerful and interesting to see her go through. But they really, really had a chance to do that with a whole mirror scene in The Last Jedi. If they're going to do something, they should have done it there. I feel like this would feel like tacked on even more so if they do anything else with Rey. Ryan had his chance to do something there, and I like what he did. Whole Rey is more than what her past is. She's moving forward. That's a good take, but I still feel like this one would have been interesting too.
Yeah, and I think the reason why some fans do feel so cheated out of it is because it was very brushed over in a sense. I don't personally think it was, but I can see definitely why some fans would believe that it was. When Kylo just says it out of the blue, and it's like, oh, okay, so that's the reveal. I am in agreement with you about that. Yeah. So again, thank you, Jedi Defender, for writing such a thought-provoking theory. I absolutely love it. I kind of hope it does come true. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see when episode 9 comes out, but well done for that. So now let's head on to a little bit of... Vinny, you had something prepared. You wanted to have a little discussion about Battlefront 2 DLC, didn't you?
Yeah, well, DLC certainly isn't the right word, but Battlefront 2, which unfortunately represents the entirety of mainstream Star Wars gaming right now. There's mobile titles, obviously, but really the entirety of Star Wars gaming, PC console, is just Battlefront 2. And I enjoyed it. I've been playing it since the pre-launch, the 3-day early thing. I put about 300 hours into it, and the core game is fun, but there's obviously been a lot of drama there. There was the early loot crates that they took out on day one, but that pushed the schedule back, the production schedule back. And taking that out, they then had to revamp the progression system, and that pushed the development schedule for the game back a good 2 to 3 months from what we've been able to tell. The game was originally sold as having, we're going to have constant updates. They called it a live system, or a live support system. And, we got the Last Jedi content, and that was all great. We got the crate map, and we got Finn and Phasma as new heroes. We got a new hero ship with Tali and her A-Wing. And then it started to kind of trickle out, and the content started to peter out.
I just think that the reason for all this has been EA through and through, and what they deem as profitable. And at the end of the day, they are a business, and I understand that, and I respect that to some extent. But the way they've handled DICE and Battlefront has been appalling. They've basically, I almost see it as I don't know if it is, but it almost seems like a fuck you to the gaming community. You made this massive stir about loot boxes, and you didn't want that. So we're taking all the developers off this game and putting them on Battlefield 5, and you're not going to get any downloadable content for this game or free content for this game, or it's going to be very, very slow to come out because there's so few developers on this game.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily a direct fuck you response from EA. I mean, that would be a bit, well, I say it would be a bit absurd, but man, with EA, you never know. But it did certainly remove the revenue stream for a game. I mean, if they're going to keep pumping out content for a game, they need to have a financial reason to do so. And the community screamed and screamed and screamed, and so they got rid of their one revenue stream for the game. And so the game just wasn't making any money for them, other than obviously initial sales. But as we know in the modern gaming industry, the real money is after the fact, the microtransactions, the crates, the boxes, the cards. But what's happened since is that the original community manager, the guy who talks for EA and DICE to the gamers, was originally Sledgehammer, and he really had no idea how to talk to the gaming community. He insulted a number of people. He was very dismissive. He acted like kind of the early 90s jock type. Oh, these freaking gamers, these nerds. And he was shouted out of the room for another gentleman named Ben Walk. And Ben Walk seemed to be kind of your fellow Star Wars nerd. He was approaching you with, yes, I have a room full of figures and posters, and I've been a fan of Star Wars. I grew up with Star Wars with my Luke Skywalker blanket, and he seemed to be a much better face for the game. And so he had some goodwill. His posts weren't getting spontaneously downvoted by 400 negative karma. Unfortunately, there's been this drought of content, and we've been waiting on the Clone Trooper update, which was supposed to have a slew of Clone Trooper skins and customizations and would start to kick off the second life for the game, skins, customization. Unfortunately, when the game was about to come out, or actually just after it came out, there was some data mining. Someone dug into the PC version of the game and found that these clone skins were already in the game. They've been in the game since day one. So people were expecting, hey, we're going to get 10 or 12 clone skin customization, and they'll be updated and tweaked, and all we got were just two clone skins. Now, this update has not come out as of this recording. It will be coming out in a couple weeks. So hopefully this could be wrong. But according to Ben, we're only getting 2 skins. And the Battlefront 2 has actually had, despite the fervor and the hatred going on, it's actually had a pretty strong player base. Not a growing one, but a strong one remaining. I mean, there's even clans based around it. And they are now starting to leave. The diehards, the holdouts, the ones who were still defending the game and saying, look, at the core of this game, there is still something fun. They are starting to leave. And at the core of that was Ben Walk's announcement for these 2 skins. In the background had a droidica. It was very clearly a battle droid, a destroyer droid, one of the Roly Boys from the prequels. And it was obviously that. And everyone assumed this was a secret leak, a tease of like, hey, we're actually going to have droidicas too, because Ben Walk had also teased Geonosis a good week before it was announced at E3. So we just thought it was Ben being Ben and him trying to keep everyone happy. And now he said, nope, no such class, no such object. It was old material, and has now started being dismissive of the remaining community, including going so far as to attack Star Wars HQ, or I'm sorry, it was either Star Wars HQ or Battlefront updates, 2 of the last major YouTube channels, last major social media presences to be defending the game. He openly attacked them. And so we are now going to start to see what could have been the revitalization, the rebirth of the game. We're now seeing the last people defending it starting to go. And we're barely, I don't even think we're at a year since the game's launch. If I recall, the game's launch was November, I want to say. Either October or November. And we're not even at a year, and the last holdouts, the people who were defending the game vocally, are now just walking out. And Ben Walk is starting to get the same reputation that the previous community manager had. And this has now left us with a question, because this was EA's chance to save their image with the Star Wars IP. And now it's utterly ruined. The last few people defending it are walking out, and they've still got 5 years left on their exclusivity contract. That's right. If you're not aware, EA has exclusive rights. They will be the only company making Star Wars video games until 2023. And they've already lost the few people who were left to defend them. So where does this leave us? Sam, what do you think?
I just hate the way EA has handled this. I love the Battlefront games. I've been a big fan of both of them since the DICE have made, and it's just so sad to see a good game. Battlefront 2 is a good game in my opinion. It has a lot more content than the first game. Maybe not quite as much as we would have liked to see, but it has an okay amount, and it's got a good core experience. There's a lot to it. There's ways to like level up your character. There's some degree of customization. It's not a bad game at all, but the handling of it has just been, I don't know how they've managed it. It's a work of art how much they've managed to screw this up. And EA, I cannot wait for them to get red, for them to lose the exclusivity. And if Disney renew it, if Lucasfilm renew that, I will be very very disheartened to say the least, to put it politely, because we've already lost, a single player game that we were going to get, because Star Wars used to be all about the single player games, and that is a product of its time. Single player games have taken a bit of a hit with in recent years, so it's not like it's just EA, but they certainly are the epitome of the gaming industries right now. Yeah, it's sad that we're losing these single player games. We're getting one. I think they shut down one because it wasn't the type of game they wanted to make, or some BS about that, and basically it just wasn't going to make them money, or as much money as they would with a multiplayer game.
Yeah, you're talking about Respawn's. The game was called Ragtag, and it was going to be a more classic action RPG. And now they originally claimed that they had not canceled the game outright. They had taken the developers, brought them into their own studio, kind of consumed the studio, and claimed they would be continuing on the project and just tweaking the game to be a slightly more modernized model. Now, if that means jamming it full of microtransactions, or if that means making it a battle royale, I don't know what that means. But yeah, the game was not originally confirmed to be canceled, but they were just reworking it. There's also another game possibly coming out called Jedi Fallen Order, and that was announced in the most unceremonious way by an old dude in the audience at E3 and an awkward woman holding a microphone. And I believe they rushed the announcement of that due to the severe backlash of Battlefront 2, and that I don't think that game is anywhere close to being ready.
It's a sad day. It's a sad time to be, it's a great time to be a Star Wars fan, but a Star Wars games fan, it's not. We're in the dark ages a bit. It feels like we're in the might of the Empire era, I think.
Well, we've traded, because in the 90s and early 2000s, most of your Star Wars content was coming in the form of video games. KOTOR, Rogue Squadron, most of the content was coming in, Jedi Outcast, that was the actual story being moved by video games, and you weren't getting any movies. And now we're getting lots of movies and no games. So we've kind of swapped from a couple decades ago.
I guess we can't have the best of both worlds. Well, we could, but it's not happening at the moment.
So there's always hope that Disney could find a way to get out of this contract, and there's always hope that Disney could throw their money behind saving their identity with the franchise. But as of right now, I guess maybe we wait for the inevitable Battlefront 3 with Episode 9, but the brand is so tainted, I don't even know where they go from here.
It's such a sad, because Battlefront was, it doesn't take anything away from the old Battlefront games, but they were so highly remembered. They were so highly favored by the community, and then when it got announced that it was coming back, it was being rebooted, so many people were so excited for it. Like I've said, the games aren't bad themselves, but the legacy that they've created has been nothing short of terrible, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's just funny to me that I wanted to bring this back around, that this was their chance to turn it around. The people who were still defending the game were going, okay, you've got one last shot, flood us with skins, give us reasons to come back and play. And because, they've said they've got prequel heroes on the horizon: Dooku, Anakin, Obi-Wan, Grievous, Geonosis, a new Conquest mode, all this stuff they announced at E3, and the servers are just going to be ghost towns before we get any of that. So I just don't see how they save their reputation and the franchise. I don't see where they go from here, and it's really unfortunate.
It really is, and I hope it's going to be a long 5 years if Lucasfilm don't find a way to get out of this contract with EA. But hey, 10 years of EA and we get, 3 Battlefront games and a few mobile games. Okay, so now it's time for answering questions from the community. We only have one question this week, but, you know, it's better than no questions at all. So let me just read that out. So, Diecast Desperado from YouTube asks, could we possibly get a battle between Vader and Maul in a future film? It obviously couldn't end in either of them dying, but it could still be a great duel. So, guys, what do you think about the possibility of Vader and Maul facing off and seeing who emerges victorious from this fight?
This is an interesting question because I feel like it has been hinted before that Vader and Maul have met each other. Because when Vader showed up on Malachor, was it? Maul definitely knew, like, I can't take him on alone. He seemed afraid of Vader, and I don't think that would happen from just reputation alone for Maul. And I don't know if we're going to see it in a film, but if we do get more, since they did set up Maul in the films, we could see more film Maul, and possibly having a Vader in there too. But I feel like we're going to see this fight no matter what medium, no matter how we're going to do it, it's definitely going to happen.
I almost liked the idea that Maul simply got so scared because he felt Vader's presence. Like, we see Maul and we see him as this being of hatred and rage and all things dark side. And if he feels Vader and goes, this guy is just a festering pit of self-hatred and loathing and everything that encompasses the dark side, there is no way I can take him on. He's just a force of nature. I kind of like that a little bit better than them facing off in the past. But yeah, I don't know. Lai, what do you think about it?
I think it would be awesome. I mean, it's both of Palpatine's apprentices, very powerful Force users. As we know, again, Vader fangirl here. So I mean, I would relish any time Vader can reappear in new media, especially going forward. Like Todd said, we set up. I mean, it is set up that film Maul can be, can reemerge in some future media. So I think that'd be very cool, actually, because besides Kylo and Rey, we haven't really seen a super well matched Force user fight in the new canon. So
no, yeah, you're right on that one. Vinny, you're a big Legends guy, so you must know about the fight between Vader and Maul in a comic.
I actually, that's my one weakness is the comics. I read all the books, but comics I never delved quite as deep into as I wanted to. As far as Legends go, one thing that this reminds me of, and I don't know why, but in Force Unleashed, there was a droid that was stuck with the main character, Vader's apprentice, who would Proxy, exactly, and he would randomly turn into other historically known Jedi like Obi-Wan Kenobi and randomly attack the player character as just kind of a joke, as a throwback, almost like Kato from the Green Hornet. And I feel like something like that, a droid that could summon historical data and form these characters, would be a good setup for that sort of fight without having to finagle those two characters being in the same place at the same time. If they just want that pure straight hit to the veins of fan service, they could have like a droid like Proxy summon up that image and we'd still get to at least see what that fight, or at least visualize that fight. The only other thing that I could think of that happening is there is that gap between Maul having his like second prime of when he had just taken Mandalore and then subsequently got booted off it by Ahsoka, and how he became this kind of decrepit old singular focused guy in Rebels. There is that gap, like something kicked him back down the rungs other than Palpatine. Something must have happened to him, and that would be the period for it to happen. So could it have happened? Yes, but I'm not sure that it would. If it did, my thoughts on the fight aren't very long. I think that Vader would just tear him in half. I think Vader would just throw him against a wall and just rip him in two. I don't think the fight would last very long. Todd, what were you thinking?
Yeah, like you said, there's the Maul had his whole Crimson Dawn thing, and then he ended up just being an old guy hanging around on Malachor. I feel like a fight with Vader could be one possible thing. The Emperor notices him, sends Vader in, messes with his stuff. He ends up, where he is. I even feel like it's implied that it could have happened. I don't know if they're going to leave it vague or what they're going to do with it, but it'd be interesting to see for sure.
Well, one thing that is interesting is we know that Maul had run-ins with Inquisitors before his appearance in Solo, because we see him with the lightsaber he has in Rebels, which I believe actually was confirmed to be fashioned from Inquisitor's lightsabers. So he was already running. Maybe he even already had run-ins with Darth Vader before that. If he's having, maybe if the Inquisitors couldn't take him, maybe Vader. Maybe that is the story that the Inquisitors are trying to take Maul because they know he's head of Crimson Dawn or whatever, and then Maul makes swift work of them, and then Vader's like, right, I guess this is a job for me, and yeah, I think Maul would definitely get his behind kicked.
I feel like the fight, like you said, would be very swift if it happened at all. I think if we're going to see it at all, we're much more likely to see some sort of fan service excuse, like a droid with a hologram or something, or maybe maybe even a Force vision.
It definitely would be very fan servicey to see the fight, but hey, I'm fine with a bit of fan service sprinkled in with Star Wars every now and again. I mean,
oh yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just
I think it makes Star Wars the odd bit, as long as it's not all encompassing. I think that a little bit of fan service it's nice. Maul and Vader would certainly be a very flashy fight to see. I almost wonder if that's what they would have been heading towards with the Solo sequels that probably now won't get made. I'm still fingers crossed that they will, but yeah. So Vinny, do you want to close out and give the audience our coordinates?
Absolutely. If you liked what you heard, hop a lift down to level 1313, the seedy underbelly of the internet known as Reddit, where you can find us at the subreddit r Star Wars Speculation. We're also available on SoundCloud, Pocket Cast, and iTunes as Kessel Fun Podcast. And be sure to check us out on YouTube as Kessel Fun Podcast, where you can subscribe to us and click that little bell to be the first to know when new episodes are up. And if you enjoyed this episode, you will give it a like. If you have questions for us or topics you'd like to hear us cover, such as fan servicey fights that would otherwise never ever happen, hit us up on Twitter at Kessel Fun. See you around, kid.